Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Denise Krimlian. I'm leadership, career, and somatic coach with From Within Coaching, and I'm here with my peers from Within, and we're here to talk about the sandwich generation today. What is the sandwich generation? Well, it's adults typically between 40 and 60 who are caring for both their aging parents as well as their own children. And that could involve financial support, logistic support, emotional support, you name it. And so we're going to be just sharing some of our own experiences as well as some thoughts around how we stay resilient during the work that we have to do to support both our children and or other people that are also caregivers as well. And so with that, we're just going to get started with a series of questions, and we're all going to just chime in with some different perspectives on what we've been experiencing. All right. The first question we're going to talk about is what are some of the impacts that you faced with being a caregiver? And I'm going to start with Megan today. So, Megan, can you tell me what are some of the impacts you faced with being a caregiver?
Um, First of all, thanks, Denise, for facilitating this. While I should just say I'm single, I'm over 50. I don't have children, so my caregiving has been um, really supporting my mom, who was taking care of my father at the end of his life. Now it's supporting my mom where I can. So it's not, I think when people think of caregiving, they think somebody's in a bed and you're taking care of them. And that's not the whole story.
Mm.
If my sister breaks her leg, she's got a son. She's a single parent. There's caregiving there. So I think caregiving looks like a lot of different things. It's not that person, you know, over a bed taking care of somebody,
Hmm.
So for me, it's that I call it the second line of defense. I'm supporting my mom. I'm supporting my sister. I'm supporting a friend whose parents have died or a child who has died. And that's what caregiving looks like for me. It impacts me positively in a way that I can help when needed. My business and my schedule allows me to do that. When I worked at corporate America, my schedule was not flexible at all. It would have been horrendous to have to had support my mother through breast cancer and daily radiation for 6 weeks had I been working at that corporate job. There's no way I could have driven her every day. They would not allow it. So I'm grateful for that. The other thing about being the single person is that everybody also reaches out to you because they know you're flexible and ready and you'll step up. So it's a balancing act.
Mm. Thank you, Megan. Does
You're welcome.
anybody else have thoughts specifically around the impacts that you all have faced directly with either being a caregiver or supporting somebody else
I'll
that's
go. Hi, I'm Lou from Within Coaching, and I had the experience in 2012, the holidays at 2012. My 90 plus year old father, my mother had passed away a year and a half before that, but my father came for Christmas and became very ill at our house and was hospitalized. And then the I guess Medicare, some fell out, ran out, and he lives in Maine, and I live in California, and we tried everything we could do to get him back to Maine, but he was too ill.
Mm.
So it was one of those circumstances where I looked at my husband and I said, he has to move in here. So the impact was very great. My husband, who's also a general contractor, was able to go into our guest room and the impact modify the bathroom, put grab rails in and things like that. And then we, hospital bed, whole thing. But the big impact was I, like you, Meg, I was working freelance at the time, so I had the flexibility. But I thought, oh, I can take one of the shifts. He needed 24-hour care. I couldn't. I just couldn't. It was just too much work. So I ended up hiring caregivers around the clock. And that experience became like running another business. You had to find staff, they dropped out, you had to pay them. you had to, you know, fortunately, there were a lot of resources where I live in California, but still, his presence, he was there and he was ill, and he was very frustrated at himself for being so ill. So how he projected it was onto me and the other caregivers, his frustration. It was really quite an experience. We were able to finally get him home back to Maine, and um, he lived about 6 months longer there, but still, the impact emotionally for me, I wasn't that particularly close to him growing up. So at one point, I do remember going outside and going, why'd you pick me? Why'd you pick me to take care of him, you know?
Mhm.
But anyway, it was a pretty big impact. Fortunately, my husband was a trooper, and you know, we were able to weather it, but it's not I mean, we're talking about sandwich generation. I do have two older sons who had moved away, but they care about us. And when it was the holidays, so they came home. So it was just, it was an impact. But mostly I remember it was like, wow, I'm running a little business here. I got 24-hour caregivers and I have to worry about, are they getting paid? Are they showing up on time? What happens if they don't show up? Blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my story about the impact on
Thank
caregiving.
you. Yeah, thank you. And you brought up a really good point about the emotional aspect of it. And there's a lot of times, how do we keep ourselves resilient during, the caregiving process? And then also, just the emotional strain that can create some burnout. So keeping ourselves resilient to avoid that burnout or, just reduce our stress and stay regulated. And so I'm wondering, Mary, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I am guilty of when shit hits the fan. My parents have both passed and my kids are in their 20s, but my daughter and my father, my daughter was in the hospital, and my father was dying all in the same month in 2021. Um, and I am guilty of um, I'm going to just do everything I can. I'm going to do. I'm going to research. I'm going to get the help for my daughter. I'm going to, like research more about what it's, the dying process. And that really took me away from my heart, my authentic
Mm,
self. And I
mhm,
did that because I wasn't, if I felt, and I know this isn't true, but I felt that if I actually allowed myself the emotions about my
mm,
daughter and my father, I thought I was going to fall apart. Like I just had to keep it together and I had to do all this stuff. And so when I actually allowed myself to ask my daughter, what do you need? Instead of me assuming I knew what she needed or,
mm,
you know, really being present with what was going on for me, actually helped my resiliency in that time a lot. Uh,
Mm,
so instead of stuffing shit away, really just sitting with the emotions and giving myself a lot of self-compassion. So I think with resiliency, for me at least, um, having a practice of self-compassion is really important.
mm, absolutely.
that's great, Mary. Mm.
Thank you. And Augusta, I know this is also something that's near and dear to your heart as a somatic coach as well. So tell me about your experience with how to stay resilient and keep from burning out in high stress situations of caregiving.
Yeah, that's hard. I'm a mother of two 20-year-old daughters, and I take care of my 88-year-old mother. She has caregivers. And Lou, totally get what you said, totally agree with it. Getting those caregivers to be there and to schedule and to it's almost like another job of mine.
Mhm,
I don't physically care for her in that space, but I'm lucky enough to be able to have those caregivers. But I took care of my dad and shepherded him through his death. And I was very similar to Mary. It was like I was in control. I was totally in control. I did everything that, needed to be done, all the hospital stuff, but I fell apart afterwards and ended
mm,
up with two autoimmune diseases. And again, as
mm,
a somatic coach, I understand what was happening. Now with my mom, she was just in the hospital recently. And I was crying so hard when I got there that I had to sit on the floor in the hospital and just compose myself and keep crying until could shake it off and go put that face on, because we can't, as at least for me, my experience is I can't let my mom see that I'm struggling with this.
Mhm.
I can't,
Mm.
because feels so guilty. She's, a woman and a mom, and she's like, why, you shouldn't be doing all of this, but who's going to do it? I do it. So it's a lot of self-compassion, and it's a lot of care for ourselves. And I think I deal with this with my clients too. I'm sure y'all have stories also of our women that are in this same position. How do we support ourselves, but how do we support them also?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Jane, I know you're jumping off in a minute, but I'm wondering, is there any other thought you have from anything that's been said that you want to chime in quick?
Yeah, thank you, Denise. My experience, well, recently I had to take my stepdad, who was 80, to an eye doctor appointment that turned into an emergency room MRI visit. He had a swollen optic nerve. And the thing that I found that kept me strong, and maybe him too, was humor, a sense of humor. I found myself in the hospital wearing dirty underwear because I didn't plan to be overnight with my stepdad. So we had humor together. We had honest conversation together. And also, personally, I got enough sleep. I drank water. I ate really healthy food. I still did my yoga practice. There are some things that, you read everywhere. Stay hydrated, get enough sleep. And it's true. It's kind of amazing. If you drink enough water and get enough sleep, your likelihood of dealing with shit increases. It improves. So that
Mm.
was my that was my experience with the, take care taking, was that the self-care, it you can't abandon self-care. The put your mask on first before you help someone else thing is real. And to have that experience personally is very educational. It's informative, and it's also empowering to some extent.
Mhm. Thank you, Jane. That's such an important point. And yeah, I think a lot of times we feel guilty when we think about taking care of ourselves because we know
Yeah, exactly.
the other person is going through. And so but to your point, it's just flipping that script a little bit to say, by taking care of myself, I'm going to be better able to help this other person. Right. So,
Yeah.
Denise, I'd love to add one more thing before I have to sign off, but as we're all talking about this, it feels like there is feelings towards how we respond versus how we react. And like the reaction that like I have to do all this stuff, those are knee-jerk reactions. But if we're able to respond from an authentic place,
mhm.
our cortisol levels come down, things change. So I just wanted to add the respond versus react in stressful times of caring for the older generation and the younger generation.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Amy, we haven't heard from you yet. And that actually, I believe, is one of the topics that you talk about quite a lot. Do you have
It
any
is, and I'm
thoughts
so
about
glad
that?
Mary brought it up, right? Is just the key um the key is about noticing how much you are in reaction mode versus response, because to what Jane was saying about making sure that you are rested, one of the things when we're in reaction mode all the time is that it steals our energy. And if we have limited energy to begin with, we have to be super just aware of how we navigate that energy that we do have left. And so when we get into more of a responsive state versus react, we can actually save the energy for those times where actually, I hate to say it this way, but we really do need to react, because we don't need to react to everything. We can
Yes.
respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have some of your own experiences too. I know, similar to Megan, talking about helping a family member or a friend who needs support in their caregiving.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. I'm 53. I have no children, and my parents passed actually at times when I didn't have to be the caregiver. So my perspective is really what it's like to be a friend of someone who's in that sandwich generation where I see them struggling with navigating being a caretaker as well as being a parent and and potentially a wife or husband, potentially, having a full-time work or volunteer or whatever it is. And the usual thing that I would always say, anytime anybody's going through something, the first thing I would say is to ask that person, what do you need? But what I'm finding is that often when we ask, what do you need to someone who's completely overwhelmed, it's actually extremely overwhelming to answer it. And so what I'm finding is by asking, what would be helpful? What do you need? Is to say, you may not know now, but would it be helpful for me to put a list together of things that I could do to help you? Is that you give them almost like a menu. And the menu can be things like walk the dog. Know that maybe they work late on a particular night. Maybe that's the night that you offer to feed the family or, take the kiddos out or whatever it is. But I find that it can be, I don't want to add to the overwhelm of them having to make a decision. So I try to make it a little bit easier for them. Again, it kind of depends on the how well you know this person. I definitely have been in situations where I've supported people who I don't know them that well, but they're neighbors, and I know that they're going through a challenging time. And I know it sounds corny, but even just sending a flower or a note that says, I see you. I see the effort. I'm here for you. Is that may not give them the extra time that they need. That may not help them serve dinner, but I'm helping them as an individual to say, I see what's happening for you. What I won't do, Denise, is I won't say, you got this. You're strong. You got this. Because that can actually kick in imposter syndrome. They're like, I have Amy fooled. I don't have this. I'm not strong. But more so saying things about how you see the efforts and you're inspired and you believe in them. I believe in you. I see the difference you're making in your mom's life. I see the difference you're making in your kid's life. So that's just a quick thought from me.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to that compassion, for ourselves, but then also for the people that we love that are going through it as well around us. So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Taking a minute, just my own story too is I'm a mom to a 12-year-old, and I have two aging parents that are close to 80 and over 80, and with their own health. I'm an only child. And my parents are both only children too. And so I don't have any first cousins. I have no siblings. So it's me, myself, and I. And so my husband, luckily, is super, super supportive, and he's one of those people, Amy, that you're just mentioning in terms of helping to support me through, the roller coaster of the things that I've had to deal with. And so just, thinking about what has helped is setting boundaries a little bit, is what am I available for? And empowering them a little bit too. Luckily, they're both in the stage where they're still living independently. And so there's different stages we've been talking about today. And so for me, it's about how do I honor what they want, which is to be independent and also be there to be an advocate if they need it. And so setting some boundaries is helpful to say, hey, if you need me to go to this doctor's appointment, you need to coordinate it with me because I've got all these other logistics. So that's been one way of feeling better for me to say, I can still be there for you and my life matters too, right? And it's like I'm living my life while I'm also supporting you in what you need. And so just a thought there about that kind of boundary setting can help us with our resilience as well. And then just really reiterating some of the things around putting our own oxygen mask on first in terms of staying healthy, hydrated, sleep. It really does help with that react versus respond. So there's been a lot of great takeaways. Just want to keep it just a little bit, we're going to probably continue to do this and do some additional thoughts in the weeks to come. For now, though, just some of the key takeaways of asking what do you need to the people around us that are caregivers and also to the people going through it. A menu of options, loved that idea. Responding versus reacting. How can we take a pause and respond versus just reacting in the moment with all the emotions that are running high? And compassion and caring for ourselves as some of the key topics that we've talked about. And if anybody wants to learn more about how to do any of this, we've got a ton of events that are all around these topics. And so you can go to our events page on the From Within site. And so we hope that you've enjoyed this. Please let us know if this has resonated for you, if you'd like to learn more about it. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.